Hello there, welcome to another code field tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about HTML input attributes. Let's go. So I think in the past few tutorials we talked about HTML forms, and as I've said, this is a 4-part series and this is the last part of the 4-part series. So we're going to be exploring more about the HTML input attributes. Now let's jump back into our code. Okay, if you actually notice that in our code, you discover that we have a bit of much of it is actually input, like input stuff, input here, input there. So definitely we're going to talk about the attributes we can enter. We're going to talk about maybe the type attribute, the SLC attribute, and we also talk about I think just the type and the SLC. We'll talk about the value and the onClick. But actually we have more than that. We can these attributes actually sometimes they help us to specify some stuff for the input field. Okay? And right now let's just try some of those attributes. So right now let's create our comment as usual, making an HTML input. Okay, input attribute. Attributes. This would actually conflict with this. So just not to make it conflict, let's change this to input type, because most of the things we did here are just input type attributes. So this is just HTML input attributes. So what can we create with HTML input attributes? So example of that particular HTML input attribute is known as the value attribute. And let's actually know how to actually write the value attribute. Let's copy this. We're going to actually be copying much of this. Let's copy this and let's paste it here. And once we paste it here, we have to type in a value, and the value is within this input attribute. So we're actually creating the simple input type attribute. Please, if you don't actually understand much of this, check the previous tutorial. We talked more about how to create this stuff. So the people that are watching this right now should have watched the former one, so they can actually jump to this part. So right now, after I've actually copied this, we're just trying to create a simple input attribute. Right here, we can create our own attribute for the input, known as value. And what the value does is that it specifies an initial value for an input field. So basically, we're going to actually see what it's going to be doing in the next few minutes. Let's set the value of the first thing to Victor. And let's save this. And by the time we go back to our Chrome and we preview this, we'll see Victor written right in this place, and it's almost more like a placeholder. But if not, one thing about this placeholder is the fact that there is nothing written within the placeholder itself. That's just one of the, let me say, like the main difference. See this right now. Once you click on this, you can see that it is clickable and we can just type it there. But in this aspect, this one actually, it takes up the full space. Like there's already a word there, and if you're not careful, you might just submit it like that, thinking that you filled it up like that. So basically, it's actually much more better if you make use of the placeholder. But just in case, you can make use of the input, the value attribute to fill in some stuff. Some websites use this value attribute when they extract things from Google to fill in the rest of the information for the site. So it's kind of a bit useful. So right now, let's actually look at another attribute. We call it the read-only attribute, and it specifies that this input field is only read-only. So let's paste another input field, and right here we can actually type in our read-only. So you can just type in read-only. It's just simple, read-only. But we need a value to keep it in place. Let's add a value, and I'm going to name this John. And let's save this. And by the time I go back to my Chrome and I preview this, we can see that we have a value named John, but it can't be edited. I'm trying to delete something, it can't be edited. So this is what we mean by read only. And also we also have another one called disabled. And the disabled can be filled, but the fact is that it won't be read when you actually want to submit the form. That means the form won't accept it when it's about to be submitted. Let's paste another one right here, and right in the input text we can write disabled, and we can save this. And by the time we go back to our Chrome and we preview this, we will actually see another one right here, but you can scroll that you cannot even type into it at all. I mean, the first one managed to type, but the second one you cannot type into it, and it's almost the same thing with this guy, okay? But it's just the fact that this one can still be read by the form. That means it will still be submitted with the form, but this one will not even be submitted at all, even if there was a value between it. Let's try and add maybe a simple value. We can get an angle of what is really going on. Disabled. Let's save this and let's go to Chrome and preview this, and we discover that disabled is just there. This is not going to be read by the form at all, and it's not even going to be submitted, but this one still has a chance of being submitted. That's the difference between both of them. Now the next one we also have is the size, and what the size actually does is the fact that it specifies the width of the input field. Okay, although the default value is actually 20, but you can decide to spread it further. So right now let's actually define the size of it. I mean the size. So let me create another version of this, and we want to specify the size. I'm sorry about those first name stuff. Okay, let's just change this to second name so that we'll not mix up then. Second name, third name, and let's change this to fourth name, and let's save this. Okay, we can save this, and what we discover is that we can actually, let's just write the size. Okay, size, and we can set the size to any number we want. Let me set the size to 50, and once we save this and we load the page, we discover that we have this thing is stretching up to a length of 50. It stretches up the width to 50. So that's what the size attribute, that is what it does. Now next one we also have is the max length attribute, which specifies the maximum number of characters that are allowed in an input field. So let's take note of that. Let's copy this. Let's copy this first one. Let's copy this and let's paste it right here. So we want to specify the max length. So how do we do that? Just with keyword max length. Max length, that's the maximum length. I want it to be just 5 characters. So okay, this is 6 characters, but anyway, let's just, this would actually, okay, let me delete the R. Sorry about that, my keyboard's a bit wonky. Let's save this and let's go to Chrome and preview this, and we discover that by the time we scroll down, we can only type in 5 characters. I mean, I'm really trying to type. Let me type in pyro. You can see I can't type in the H, so that's just it. I've limited the amount of characters I can type within the box. Now another tag that we have right here, we have the min and the max attribute, and so this actually allows us to specify the minimum and maximum value for a field. So right now let's take note of that. Let's paste this right here, and well, actually this won't be much of a good example. Okay, let's just change this to a date kind of an input, a date input. So select your birth date, and right now we have those input type. Right, let's change this to date. Let's change this to date, and we can set the value. Okay, let's just remove the value. Won't be needing much of that, but we'll be needing what we call the min and the max. Okay, and so for the minimum, let's set the minimum. We can set the minimum date. Let's just set the minimum, just give it a bit of an equal sign. Give it a bit of an equal sign and the quote. And we can type in maybe 2000 and 1 and 2000, 2nd of January in the year 2000. So let's save that, and by the time we go to our Chrome and we preview this, we can discover that we can select our birth date, but the fact is that we can't go beyond 2000. Try it. You can see that we can't go beyond 2000. Select that, but we've selected, that's a bit of the minimum value. We can select the maximum value. Okay, if we can actually change this to max and we can set this that, okay, we want the max date to be 2000. So that means that the date must not be beyond the year 2000. This is what your website is sometimes when you want to regulate your age. Okay, so right now let's try and reload this page, and by the time we scroll down and we click this, we can see that there's no date after 2000. Everything is before 2000, as you can see, before 2000. So that's all about that part. So there are other attribute that we can use. We have the multiple attributes, and to make use of the multiple attributes, we are going to use it to select multiple files. So create a simple input type, and on the input type, we're going to be using the tag multiple. So let's select the input type right here. Type input type, and we can actually just select the file we want to be importing files. And we can actually say those simple label stuff. Label. You can write choose your files, and we have an input type set to file, and we want to set it to multiple, which means I can select multiple files. Let me save this and go to Chrome and preview this, and you see that by the time I click this, I can just select a very simple picture right here. And also, if I click it again, I can select another picture. I can select two pictures. So it's me actually trying to select multiple files at once. I can select multiple files at once. See, I can select multiple files at once. This is 3 files. I can select multiple files. So that's basically what it does. Select multiple. And also, we also have another one known as the pattern. But mostly the pattern is actually just used to regulate the field and the numbers of the things that we want to contain in. We won't be actually talking much about the pattern. We can check out more about the pattern in W3 schools. We have a very good example of the pattern. So the next one I'm going to talk about is known as the placeholder attribute. And we can just copy this and we can paste this right here. This doesn't actually need to have a value. We can just delete the value since we'll be using the placeholder very soon. So right now, just type in placeholder, and you can type in Victor. And let's save this. And by the time we go back to our Chrome and we preview this, we can see that the placeholder itself is Victor, and this one can actually be typed in. It's just like a bit, the opacity has been reduced, and we can type in this one. But this one is also like a value. We have to delete this one before we can type in it, okay? But this one, it says us just tells us what we are meant to type in the information in. While this one just asks us to fix it in automatically. So that's basically the difference, just like a simple difference. And also we have another one known as the required attribute. So let me paste this again. Paste this again. Okay, so we're going to actually write this, and right here we're going to write required. So required means that if you don't fill it, the form cannot be submitted. So right now, let's create a submit button, a simple submit button, so we can actually check that if that would happen. Type, and we're actually going to have a submit button, and let's save this. And by the time we go back to our Chrome and preview this, we'll discover that it's true, we have a submit button. And once let's delete this and submit, and it's quite that it's going to write please fill out this field, which means that we have to fill it before it can submit. So basically that is what the required attribute does. So basically that's just more about the attributes, and that's just it. The next one we also have is known as the autofocus attribute. And what the autofocus attribute does is that it specifies where the page should focus to, when it specifies the input type that the page should focus into when the page loads actually. So let's just copy this. Let's just paste it. Let's paste something else. Paste, and right here we can just write the popular word autofocus, and let's save this. And by the time we go back to our Chrome and preview this, it's called that when the site loads, it comes to the last input we just wrote right here. So basically that's just more about the HTML input tags. The input attribute, the main input attribute. We also have the height and the width to specify the height and the width of some attributes as we defined in the formal tutorials. And so that's basically all about the HTML input attribute. But also I think we should explore the autocomplete attribute. Basically what the autocomplete attribute does is that it helps your site it uses the site itself to complete it. To complete, you autocomplete the information. That means to fix the information based on what you've always selected earlier, once you have always been selecting. So you can just write autocomplete. I don't know if I'm going to be having autocomplete here, but let's save this, and you can set the autocomplete to on. can set the autocomplete to being switched on or being switched off. So I'm going to save this, and by the time we go back to our Chrome and we will load the page, it's going to focus as usual. And you can see that by the time we try to type in few words, I don't know if the autocomplete is going to work, but okay, it's not really going to work because I don't think I have any things that I've typed in the website recently. But basically, it should work in your own case if you are making much use of the browser for things that, I don't want to recheck your browser history. So I mean, those kind of things. Anyway, so that's actually all about that. So that's basically just the simple basics into HTML input attributes. In next tutorial, we're going to talk more about HTML scripts, and then lastly, HTML canvas. And that's all. And just a bit of HTML tips.